this one. But Bruce Lee is.
In the golden age of martial arts cinema, Enter the Dragon stood above them all and turned a young fighter into an immortal legend. But behind the polished frames and choreographed fights, something far more shocking was happening. Hidden for decades, rare behind-the-scenes footage has finally surfaced, revealing moments that were never meant for public eyes. At the center of it all was Bruce Lee, and standing right beside him was the man who saw everything up close, Bolo Yeung. What unfolded on that set would challenge everything the world thought it knew about Bruce Lee's power. The film that created a legend. When Enter the Dragon premiered in 1973, it did not arrive as just another martial arts movie. It became a cultural earthquake. The film was released only weeks after Bruce Lee's sudden death, and his performance on screen carried an almost supernatural weight. He was not only an actor delivering a role. To many, he appeared as a man who had already crossed into legend. The film spread across continents, introducing Bruce Lee as the face of martial arts to millions who had never seen anything like him. He was fast, precise, and unstoppable. To audiences, he looked more myth than human. But for years, much of Bruce's true story remained hidden behind polished edits and carefully staged action. What people saw on screen was carefully cut, choreographed, and rehearsed. What if there had been a way to look past that surface? What if the world could see Bruce not as the global icon shaped by Hollywood, but as the raw fighter he really was? That question has lingered for decades. Now, according to reports shared within Bruce Lee fan communities and individuals familiar with John Saxon's estate, a long-lost piece of history may have resurfaced. Behind-the-scenes footage from the production of Enter the Dragon has reportedly been rediscovered. It was filmed privately on an 8mm camera, possibly by Saxon's wife during the Hong Kong shoot. This footage was never intended for public viewing. It appears to have been a personal keepsake, tucked away for nearly 50 years until it was recently found by Saxon's son, Antonio, while organizing his father's archives. Unlike the carefully edited final cut seen in theaters, this material reportedly shows Bruce Lee as he truly moved and fought on set. Raw, unrehearsed, and outside the polish of Hollywood framing. While only a few seconds of this footage have surfaced online, those who've seen it say it offers a rare, unfiltered glimpse into Bruce's physical presence. And standing there during those very moments was Bolo Yeung. Unlike fans or later admirers, Bolo was not watching from the outside. He was on set every day, working side by side with Bruce. He trained with him, sparred with him, and studied his every move. That gives this rediscovered footage a different weight, because in some of those scenes, you are not just watching Bruce Lee demonstrate skill for the camera. You are seeing him unleash real power. And Bolo Yeung, the man who shared the screen with him, witnessed it up close. How much of what the world believed about Bruce was shaped by editing, and how much was pure reality captured live? That is the question this footage forces us to ask. And as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that this was no ordinary film, and what happened behind the cameras was no ordinary fight. The bottle incident. On the set of Enter the Dragon, fight scenes were rehearsed to look dangerous without ever being truly life-threatening. Every punch, kick, and strike had to be timed with precision. Props were carefully prepared so that weapons and breakable items looked real but were harmless. That was the expectation on the day Bruce Lee was filming his big confrontation with Bob Wall. The script called for a brutal exchange between Lee and Wall. The energy was high, the crew was focused, and everyone trusted the safety procedures that had been rehearsed again and again. But then, something went wrong. Bob Wall, known for being a strong and dedicated martial artist himself, picked up a bottle during the scene. It was meant to be a sugar glass prop, a bottle designed to shatter easily without causing injury. Instead, for reasons that remain debated, Bob used a real glass bottle. Reports differ on whether this was a mistake or whether Bob, trying to add more realism, made a choice in the moment. What is certain is that when the bottle smashed, it was not harmless at all. Bruce reacted instantly. His martial artist instincts took over. He defended himself as if it were a real fight, striking with full force before realizing the danger of the object in Bob's hand. The bottle shattered and Bruce's hand was cut deeply. The injury was severe enough to stop filming on the spot. Blood poured from his hand, and production staff rushed to him. He was taken for medical care where he needed 11 stitches. Filming was forced to shut down for more than a week. This was not a staged stunt gone wrong in the traditional sense. It was an accident that showed how thin the line really was between cinema and reality on Bruce Lee's sets. For Bruce, who demanded authenticity in every move, this incident was a turning point. Crew members later said his intensity changed after the injury. He was not outwardly angry, but there was a new seriousness in the way he carried himself. It was as if something had shifted. Bolo Yeung was there to see it all unfold. He saw Bruce return to training even while injured, working silently in the corner while his hand healed. The atmosphere was no longer lighthearted. Everyone understood that the incident had cut deeper than flesh. It had created tension that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. According to those on set, the cast and crew whispered constantly, wondering what Bruce would do when he came back. And when Bruce finally did return, the answer was nothing like what anyone expected. Bolo would see it all with his own eyes. When the performance became too real. When Bruce Lee returned to the set, he was focused in a way that unsettled the cast and crew. He was not reckless, nor did he appear consumed with anger, but he no longer seemed willing to limit himself for the sake of on-screen safety. His attitude carried a clear message. If a fight was to be filmed, it needed to feel and look like a real fight. From that point forward, Bruce began striking with precision and intensity that crossed the line between acting and reality. His moves were not wild, and he never appeared out of control, but he did not soften his impact for the camera anymore. For Bruce, the portrayal of martial arts meant nothing if it was fake. He wanted audiences to feel what real combat looked like, even if that realism came with painful consequences for those sharing the screen with him. The result was a series of incidents that left people questioning how far Bruce was prepared to go for authenticity. During one critical sequence, Bruce delivered a sidekick to co-star Bob Wall with such blinding speed and force that it cracked one of Wall's ribs and dislocated his shoulder, sending him flying backward into a stack of breakaway chairs with a crash that wasn't in the script. What was supposed to be a controlled, staged impact turned into an unscripted display of raw power. Standing just off camera was Bolo Yeung, a seasoned martial artist in his own right. And even he, by his own admission, was stunned silent. Years later, Bolo would recall the moment with wide eyes, saying he had never seen anything like it. He realized instantly that Bruce wasn't just fast, he was dangerously real. The cast and crew were rattled. Some believed Bruce had gotten carried away. Others whispered that he may have done it on purpose, either as a revenge for the glass bottle cut, or as a message to anyone who questioned whether he was the real thing. Bob Wall, though in pain, never publicly accused Bruce of crossing a line. Instead, he later described Bruce as intense, focused, and unapologetically authentic. The injury was real. The kick was real. And in that moment, so was the fear that Bruce Lee was not simply performing martial arts, he was unleashing it. Bolo Yeung, who had been training alongside Bruce, observed these moments closely. Unlike the audience that would later see only the edited film, Bolo saw the raw interactions between Bruce and Bob Wall. For him, this was the first time he realized that Bruce was not just faster than most fighters, or stronger than he looked. He was displaying a level of power that seemed to exceed human expectation. Bolo would later remark that Bruce was not losing his temper. He was making a conscious decision to stop hiding the extent of his abilities. For a man like Bolo, with years of bodybuilding and martial arts behind him, this was a sobering realization. He had the kind of physique that intimidated nearly everyone, yet even he began to wonder whether Bruce's abilities placed him in an entirely different category. This was no longer about cinema. It was about what Bruce could do when he chose to release his true power. And yet, despite eyewitness accounts, behind-the-scenes stories, and even visible injuries, The internet, decades later, would fill with skeptics who claimed Bruce was nothing more than a carefully edited legend. The skeptics versus the legend. The rediscovered footage of Bruce Lee should have silenced debate. Instead, it opened the door to louder arguments than ever before. Each time clips resurface online, a wave of skeptics arrives to dismiss what they are seeing. They fill comment sections, forums, and social media threads with the same lines over and over. Some write, "It's just movie magic." Others claim, "He never fought real fighters." A few go further and argue, "The guy holding the board just faked it," or even, "Bruce would get wrecked in today's MMA." These phrases repeat so often that they have almost become slogans for doubt. For a younger generation that knows Bruce more as a cultural icon than a living fighter, such dismissals carry weight. Memes and short posts are often louder than careful analysis. It becomes easier for someone to believe a mocking comment than to sit with the full context of the footage. As a result, the legend of Bruce Lee continues to exist under attack, not from historians or martial artists, but from a digital crowd that thrives on skepticism. Yet the images and testimonies say something different. The footage does not show actors pretending. It shows real contact, real injuries, and fighters visibly shaken by Bruce's strikes. The science behind Bruce's strikes also supports what the footage shows. His kicks have been estimated to generate over 500 pounds of force. His 1-inch punch carried enough shock to send a full-grown man flying backward. His sidekicks were strong enough to knock trained fighters off their balance and send them sliding across the floor. These are not the exaggerated claims of fans, but measurements backed by martial arts demonstrations that were witnessed and recorded. Even with these facts, the question lingers in online spaces. Was it real, or was it still just performance? The arguments remain because disbelief is easier than accepting that someone might have been so far ahead of his time. But what happened next left little room for doubt. Because soon, Bolo would stop being a spectator and step into the ring with Bruce himself. Bolo Yeung steps into the picture. Audiences mostly know Bolo Yeung as the muscular villain in martial arts films. Long before stepping onto a movie set, he built his reputation in Hong Kong as a bodybuilding champion. His massive physique earned him the nickname the Chinese Hercules, and he was admired for both strength and endurance. But Bolo was more than a bodybuilder showing off his size. He trained in martial arts, competed in fighting circuits, and gained a reputation for toughness that made him respected even among seasoned fighters. In the world of film, his appearance made him the perfect on-screen villain. He often played the unstoppable brute who seemed too powerful to be taken down. But behind the roles, Bolo carried the instincts of a fighter who had trained and sparred in real contests. His frame was thick with muscle, his pain tolerance was legendary, and his reflexes had been sharpened not just in gyms, but through years of competition. Unlike many actors who simply copied movements for the camera, Bolo could actually apply what he practiced. Bolo admired Bruce Lee deeply, but admiration did not erase curiosity. According to accounts from the set, he wanted to see for himself what Bruce was like outside of rehearsed scenes. Was Bruce really as fast and powerful as people whispered, or was it just movie editing that made him look that way? That question eventually turned into a test, a sparring session that has since become part of the hidden story of Enter the Dragon. What happened during that match was remembered vividly by those who saw it. Bolo tried to use the advantage of his size, pressing forward with the kind of raw power that had overwhelmed many opponents in the past. But Bruce moved differently. Reports describe him evading each attempt with ease, stepping out of range and countering with strikes that landed before Bolo could even adjust. Punches and kicks came from angles Bolo did not anticipate, and they connected with a sharpness that forced him to reset again and again. The sparring did not last long. Within 10 minutes, the thickly muscled Bolo was drenched in sweat, struggling to keep pace with Bruce's speed. According to unverified accounts, John Saxon, another cast member, eventually stepped in, sensing that the match was no longer balanced and that it risked getting out of hand. What had begun as a test was turning into a one-sided display. Bolo himself later admitted that Bruce was the only man who ever truly dominated him. He described Bruce's speed, accuracy, and calmness as terrifying, not because Bruce lost control, but because he never seemed to be straining. To Bolo, who had built his life around strength and endurance, it was humbling to face someone who fought as though he was 2 steps ahead at every moment. For those who doubted Bruce Lee and dismissed him as a product of camera tricks, this private sparring session became proof that could not be explained away. The strongest man on set had been reduced to exhaustion, and it had all happened in silence. And the silence did not last long, because what followed next would show Bruce Lee's art and technique in a way no staged fight ever could. Jeet Kune Do unleashed. Real power, real speed. The rediscovered footage did not just capture Bruce Lee practicing lines or rehearsing simple moves. According to reports, it showed him demonstrating Jeet Kune Do in real time against moving targets, and under conditions that were never meant for public viewing. The most striking parts of the film are the techniques themselves. One sequence captures Bruce delivering his famous 1-inch punch. The camera shows a grown man being jolted backward, as if hit with far more than a short movement. The impact looks small, but the reaction is undeniable. Another sequence highlights his sidekick. Instead of stopping short like a stage strike, it visibly buckles his target, forcing them to stumble and brace themselves before regaining balance. The force is clear. Then there are the non-telegraphed strikes. These are the movements that made Bruce feared even by fellow fighters. His fist or foot would move, and only after the strike landed would the opponent begin to react. Watching the tape, the timing almost looks unnatural. But this was not editing. This was Bruce in motion. Witnesses have spoken of this long before the tape surfaced. Bob Wall, who fought Bruce both on screen and in sparring, once said Bruce's control was frightening. He could strike to injure or stop within an inch with complete confidence. Chuck Norris, another martial arts legend, admitted Bruce was the fastest man he ever sparred with. His words were clear. Bruce's strikes came from nowhere, too fast to block and almost too fast to understand. What shocks most viewers is that Bruce did not seem to be showing off. He was not performing for applause or trying to impress the camera. He was simply operating at full speed, with no script and no protective stunt padding. That difference matters, because it strips away the idea that Bruce was only a movie fighter. Instead, it shows what those closest to him already knew. His art worked, and it worked at speeds and power levels that most people were not prepared to face. Skeptics often claimed this was the result of clever editing, but here, with an unedited reel, the sequence speaks for itself. Then there is Bolo Yeung. He is visible in parts of the footage, standing at the side of the set. His expression is not the face of a man watching a performance. It is the face of a man realizing that what he is seeing cannot be explained away. Bolo had trained his body to extreme limits. He had sparred with countless fighters. Yet what he saw in Bruce was different. According to those who later asked him, he admitted that Bruce's speed and control shocked him in a way nothing else had. And once you accept it as real, another question rises that is even harder to face. If this was Bruce's true power, what does it mean for everything we thought we knew about him, about martial arts, and about the limits of human ability? The forbidden power. The rediscovered footage has left one unavoidable conclusion. If what we see is real, then Bruce Lee was not exaggerated as many skeptics insisted. He was underestimated. The raw footage shows a man whose abilities may have been decades ahead of the science of martial arts and human performance. Modern athletes today rely on entire teams of experts. They have biometric sensors tracking their heart rates, slow-motion video to analyze every step, AI to fine-tune their programs, and nutritionists calculating macronutrients down to the gram. Bruce Lee had none of this. In the late 1960s and early 70s, martial artists rarely lifted weights or cross-trained. Many believed it would slow them down. Bruce went the opposite way. According to his training notes, he built a personal regimen that combined Olympic-style lifts, isometrics, and plyometric drills long before those terms were common in sports science. He used a mirror to study his technique, filled notebooks with charts of sets, reps, and timing, and treated his own body like a living experiment. He tested supplements such as protein powders and vitamins at a time when almost no martial artist did, and even designed custom training gear, including modified barbells and grip machines. His routine could involve 500 punches before breakfast, 2-finger push-ups, and jump squats to build explosive kicking power. Eyewitnesses like Dan Inosanto and Bob Wall later said Bruce's speed was so extreme that a standard film camera sometimes failed to capture his strikes. They had to ask him to slow down for the screen. The rediscovered footage is valuable not because it shows rehearsed choreography, but because it reveals what his methods produced. A body and skill set decades ahead of its time, built on nothing but self-discipline, handwritten notes, and an obsession with pushing human limits. Speculation naturally grows from here. What could Bruce Lee have become if his life had not been cut short in 1973? Some believe he would have reshaped combat sports into something entirely new. Others think he would have been recognized not only as an actor or martial artist, but as a pioneer in human performance science. A number of fans and historians even argue that Bruce was already building the foundation for what we now call mixed martial arts, blending techniques from multiple disciplines into a complete system. The skeptics who once filled online forums and comment sections with dismissive remarks now face collapse. Their most common argument, that it was all just a movie, no longer holds. The injuries, the speed, and the control are preserved in unedited frames that cannot be brushed aside. And for the fans, the rediscovery brings a haunting question. Did the world ever truly see the full Bruce Lee? Or were the films only a glimpse of what he was capable of? The terrifying thought is that the Bruce Lee captured on screen was holding back, showing only what was safe for film. If that is true, then the world may never fully understand what was lost when he died at just 32 years old. What do you think about Bruce Lee? Was he really so powerful, or was his prowess exaggerated for show? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.